Welcome to Policycast. We have Riaz Tingna with us to discuss on one of the most important development in international tax. Honorable Supreme Court pronounced a judgment in the case of Tiger Global on 15th January this year. Since then, lot of deliberations and discussions are happening around given its wide ramifications on the taxpayers. Let's see how our tax expert perceives the judgment and how it impacts the taxpayers. Welcome to our Policycast series, Riaz.
Thank you.
As the market is discussing the budget proposals announced by the FM earlier this week, we wanted to connect with you to discuss implications of the landmark Supreme Court judgment and discuss its impact on the taxpayers. So, what is your take on the past cases? Will past cases be opened after this decision?
Well, there are some media reports which state that the CBDT has confirmed that past cases will not be reopened. However, so far there is no formal press release on this issue. Now, issuance of a formal press release will reassure investors who are anxious that the Supreme Court ruling may lead to increased scrutiny of all past deals routed through Mauritius and other jurisdictions. While post introduction of statutory GAR in the domestic law, substance over form aspects are already factored in cross-border transactions and structures. But going forward, examination on a more granular level is required. In a sense, this evaluation is very factor-in, and it may be useful for taxpayers to carry out risk assessment of existing structures in light of the principles laid down in this decision.
My next question to you is on the grandfathering aspect only. So, has there been a dilution of grandfathering protection provided for investments made prior to 1st April 2017?
Yes, the court has diluted the comfort often associated with pre-1st April 2017 investments. It has clarified that safe harbor protects only income from transfer of investments made before that date. GAR provisions can still apply to any arrangement if a tax benefit is obtained on or after 1st April 2017, regardless of when the arrangement was entered into. Hence, reliance on grandfathering alone will not suffice against GAR scrutiny for post-2017 exits, even when the original investment was made earlier. The focus now shifts to the timing of the tax benefit and whether post-2017 steps constitute an arrangement to secure that benefit rather than merely the date of acquisition. Also, it will remain to be seen how the distinction between the investment and structure will evolve.
Well, with this, the taxpayers are definitely required to assess the exit steps post 2017. Now, what are the implications of this ruling for M&A transactions and exit structuring involving India-linked value?
From a deal perspective, diligence will extend beyond the target to the seller group's holding structure, governance trail, and substance. Deal documentation is likely to enhance the terms of tax risk allocation, including indemnities, escrows, gross up, and cooperation clauses. Exit routes may need re-evaluation as a holding company interposition without robust substance will be harder to defend, particularly for post-2017 exits.
Okay. So, from withholding tax perspective, how does the judgment impact withholding tax obligations?
Very good question, because while this judgment has been rendered in the context of capital gains, the reasoning can be extrapolated to other transactions as well. Example, remittance relating to royalties, FTS, interest and dividends. Currently, payers take a tax residency certificate, Form 10F, and no PE statement from the payee. The relevant agreements are required to be examined from the income categorization perspective to determine the withholding tax rate applicable on any payment after granting a treaty benefit. With the decision saying that TRC or the tax residency certificate is not enough, payers may need to reevaluate the level of diligence undertaken before making foreign remittances. Same holds good for CAs issuing Form 15CB. It has been observed that payers are generally conservative in withholding tax positions. This decision will further support this approach. They may seek lower withholding tax certificates from tax department in most cases to safeguard the interests. Also, few payers may be reluctant to adopt tax treaty rates at remittance stage. As a lot of uncertainties are involved, guidance from CBDT on the implementation of this part of the SC verdict is very much required.
So GAR has been extensively discussed in this judgment. What could be the implications of coexistence of GAR and JAR?
So when statutory GAR was introduced in the Indian domestic law, the objective was to codify the substance of form principles developed by courts over the years. It was felt that certain inherent limitations in JAR were taken care of. There's an element of subjectivity in JAR, as in many cases, there have been different verdicts in somewhat similar facts by different courts. This subjectivity was sought to be eliminated by statutory GAR. The issue of coexistence of GAR and JAR has already cropped up at lower judicial forums, where few courts have held that once statutory GAR is operational, JAR cannot be applied. Now Supreme Court seems to have approved coexistence of both. This creates tax uncertainty for domestic as well as cross-border transactions. For example, in GAR, there is a de minimis threshold, safe harbors, and also inbuilt procedural safeguards. Cases must be routed through the approving panel. These safeguards are not there in JAR. Hence, their coexistence can create tax uncertainty for both domestic and cross-border transactions.
Well, the foreign investors are definitely closely monitoring the developments around this judgment. What should they keep in mind while making new investments into India after this judgment?
So, foreign investors planning new investments must recognize that the ruling firmly requires genuine commercial substance within the jurisdiction through which investments are routed. This is not limited to investments routed through Mauritius. The court has affirmed that entities functioning as conduits or mere pass-through vehicles will not qualify for tax treaty benefits. Mere holding of a tax residency certificate does not shield arrangements from scrutiny regarding control, management, and residence. Investors must therefore ensure that the investment structures demonstrate commercial substance, residence, and effective management. Lack of these attributes will now be treated as ineligibility for tax treaty relief, considering that the impact of GAR and the expanded domestic law framework.
Thank you so much, Riyaz, for sharing these practical insights. We hope this discussion helped our listeners to understand the implications and possible way forward. We will be back soon with more expert conversations on tax, trade, and policy. Until then, thanks for tuning into Policycast.